Jungkook tells Jimin to marry someone else, hiding a devastating secret that could change their love forever before time runs out. Marry someone else, Jimin. The words struck harder than the thunder shaking the windows. Jimin stood frozen in the doorway, his fingers still wrapped around the silver handle of the umbrella he had forgotten to close. Rainwater dripped from his coat onto the marble floor, forming a dark trail beneath his shoes. Across the dim apartment, Jungkook sat beside the window, motionless, his face illuminated only by the pale flashes of lightning outside. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Jimin stared at Jungkook as if waiting for him to laugh. He didn't. Say that again, Jimin whispered. Jungkook lowered his eyes. Marry someone else. A bitter smile appeared on Jimin's lips, but it disappeared almost immediately. You're joking. No. You're angry. No. Then why are you saying something like that? Jungkook's hands tightened around the mug resting between his palms. The tea inside had gone cold long ago. He had been sitting there for nearly 3 hours, rehearsing those words in his head, knowing that the moment Jimin arrived, every carefully prepared sentence would collapse. But Jungkook couldn't let himself change his mind. Not this time. Because you deserve a life that I can't give you. Jimin slowly stepped forward. What does that mean? It means you should stop waiting for me. I never said I was waiting. You don't have to. Jungkook finally looked at him. That was the mistake. The instant their eyes met, Jungkook saw everything he had spent months trying to forget. Jimin's tired smile, the tiny scar beside his eyebrow, the way Jimin always rubbed his thumb against the edge of his sleeve whenever he was nervous. The way he remembered insignificant things about Jungkook that even Jungkook himself had forgotten. Most painfully, Jungkook remembered the first time Jimin had told him, "Whatever happens, I'll stay." Jungkook had believed him. That was why leaving hurt so much. Jimin stopped only a few feet away. Is there someone else? No. Do you love someone else? No. Then why are you telling me to marry someone else? Jungkook swallowed. Because I love you. Jimin's expression broke. For a moment, the apartment seemed to become completely silent. Even the rain outside sounded distant. You don't tell someone you love to marry another person, Jimin said softly. Sometimes you do. No, sometimes love means knowing when to let someone go. Don't give me that. Jimin's voice suddenly rose. Don't stand there and turn this into some noble sacrifice. If you don't want me anymore, just say it. I want you. Then stay. Jungkook closed his eyes. The answer was so simple. Stay. One word. One choice. One life. But Jungkook knew what Jimin didn't. He knew about the hospital. He knew about the tests. He knew about the envelope hidden inside the locked drawer of his bedroom. And he knew that the doctor had told him that some promises were cruel when the person making them knew they might not have enough time to keep them. Jungkook opened his eyes again. I can't. Jimin stared at him. Why? Jungkook looked toward the window. I have my reasons. Then tell me. I can't. Why? Because if I tell you, you'll stay. Maybe I want to stay. I know. Then let me decide. Jungkook stood. The sudden movement made Jimin step backward. For the first time, Jimin noticed how thin Jungkook had become. His shirt hung loosely around his shoulders. His face looked paler than it had a month ago. There were dark shadows beneath his eyes, and when Jungkook turned away, Jimin noticed a small hospital bracelet lying on the table. Jimin's breathing stopped. What is that? Jungkook froze. Jimin reached toward the table. Jungkook moved faster. He grabbed the bracelet and closed his fist around it. Nothing. That's from a hospital. I said it's nothing. Jungkook. Don't. The single word came out so sharply that Jimin stopped. Jungkook immediately regretted it. He looked at Jimin and saw the hurt in his eyes. I'm sorry. Jimin shook his head. No, you're hiding something. I have nothing to hide. Then why are you shaking? Jungkook looked down. His hand was trembling. He quickly placed it behind his back. Jimin took another step toward him. Are you sick? No. Jungkook. No. The second denial sounded weaker. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. You're lying. Jungkook said nothing. That silence answered everything. Jimin's lips parted but no words came. Then his eyes fell on the locked drawer beneath the television. You've been hiding something from me. Jungkook didn't move. Jimin looked back at him. What is inside that drawer? Nothing you need to know. Open it. No. Open it, Jungkook. Jimin, please. Open it. The room echoed with Jimin's voice. Jungkook flinched. Jimin immediately covered his mouth, shocked by his own anger. Then he whispered, please. That word was worse. Jungkook turned away. He couldn't tell Jimin. Not tonight. Not when he had promised himself that Jimin would never have to watch him disappear. Jungkook walked toward the bedroom. Jimin followed. Where are you going? Home. This is your home. Jungkook stopped. For years that sentence had been his favorite sound. Now it felt like a goodbye. Jimin stood behind him. Don't leave. Jungkook's fingers tightened. I have to. Why? Because tomorrow you're going to meet someone. Jimin's eyes widened. What? His name is Minye. Jimin stared at him in disbelief. Who? A friend of my family. You arranged a date for me. Yes. You're insane. Probably. I don't want to meet him. You will. No. Jimin. No. Jimin's voice cracked. I don't want Minye, I don't want anyone, I want you. Jungkook slowly turned around. His heart was breaking. But his face remained calm. You'll learn to love him. Jimin laughed through his tears. You really believe that? I have to. Why? Jungkook looked at him for a long moment. Then he whispered, because I won't be here forever. Jimin's face went pale. What did you just say? Jungkook realized too late that he had said too much. He walked away. But Jimin caught his wrist. Jungkook. Jungkook stopped. Jimin's fingers tightened around him. Don't leave me with half an answer. Jungkook looked down at Jimin's hand around his wrist. He wanted to memorize it. The warmth, the pressure, the familiar touch. Everything. Because he was terrified that one day he would remember it more clearly than he could feel it. I love you, Jungkook whispered. Jimin's tears finally fell. Then don't make me marry someone else. Jungkook gently pulled his wrist free. I need you to promise me something. What? If one day I'm gone, you won't spend your life waiting for me. Jimin stared at him. Why are you talking like you're dying? Jungkook couldn't answer. He walked toward the door. Behind him, Jimin whispered his name again. Jungkook paused. His hand rested on the doorknob. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to run back. He wanted to hold Jimin and tell him everything. Instead, Jungkook opened the door. Cold air rushed inside. Goodbye, Jimin. The door closed. Jimin stood alone in the apartment. For several seconds, he didn't move. Then his eyes slowly shifted toward the locked drawer. Something inside him whispered that Jungkook had left behind more than a goodbye. Jimin walked toward the drawer. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. He tried it. Locked. Jimin looked around the room. Then he noticed something beneath Jungkook's abandoned mug. A small silver key. And beside it was a folded piece of paper with only 4 words written across the front. For Jimin when I'm gone. Jimin's heart stopped. He picked up the letter. Outside, the rain continued falling. And somewhere beneath the sound of thunder, his phone began ringing. It was Jungkook. Jimin stared at the screen. Then the call ended. A second later, a message appeared. "I'm sorry." Jimin's hands went cold. He looked at the locked drawer. Then at the silver key. And finally at the door Jungkook had disappeared through. For the first time, Jimin understood that Jungkook hadn't been asking him to marry someone else because he had stopped loving him. Jungkook had been trying to prepare Jimin for a life without him. Jimin stood in front of the locked drawer for nearly a minute, unable to breathe normally. The silver key trembled between his fingers. "For Jimin when I'm gone." Those words refused to leave his mind. He read them again. Then again. His chest tightened. "No," Jimin whispered. "No, Jungkook, you don't get to do this." He inserted the key. The lock clicked. Inside the drawer were three things. A thick medical folder, a small black notebook, and a photograph. Jimin reached for the photograph first. It was a picture of the two of them taken 3 years earlier on a quiet winter morning. Jungkook was laughing with his eyes closed while Jimin stood beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. Neither of them had known anyone was taking the picture. Jimin turned it over. There was handwriting on the back. "Before everything changed." Jimin's fingers tightened around the photograph. He opened the medical folder. The first page contained Jungkook's name. Jimin's eyes moved downward. His face slowly lost its color. There were hospital stamps, laboratory results, specialist notes, dates, prescriptions, and pages of medical terminology Jimin barely understood. But one sentence was painfully clear. Jungkook had been receiving treatment for months. Jimin sat on the floor. The folder slipped from his hands. "No." His voice barely existed. He turned another page. Then another. Each page revealed another piece of the truth. Jungkook had known for a long time. He had gone to appointments alone. He had hidden medication in an old camera bag. He had changed his routine so Jimin wouldn't notice how exhausted he had become. He had even started avoiding photographs because he hated seeing the changes in his own face. Jimin remembered every moment. The nights Jungkook had said he was tired. The mornings when Jungkook had refused breakfast. The afternoons when he disappeared for hours and returned with a smile that looked almost convincing. Jimin remembered asking him, "Are you okay?" And Jungkook always answered the same way. "I'm fine." Jimin covered his mouth. A sob escaped anyway. "You idiot." He pressed the medical folder against his chest. "You absolute idiot." The apartment felt unbearably quiet. Jimin picked up the black notebook. The cover was worn from use. There was no title. He opened it. The first page contained a date. 3 years earlier. Underneath it, Jungkook had written, "I met Jimin today." Jimin stopped breathing. He continued, "I don't know why I noticed his hands first, maybe because he was holding a paper cup like it was something precious. He talked too much when he was nervous. I pretended to be annoyed." Jimin smiled through his tears. He remembered that day. Jungkook had complained for 20 minutes about Jimin ordering the wrong coffee. But apparently, Jungkook had been watching his hands. Jimin turned the page. "I think I like him." Another page. "I definitely like him." Another. "I'm terrified." Jimin stopped. His eyes moved slowly across the sentence. "I'm terrified because I know myself. When I love someone, I give them everything. And if I lose them, I lose myself too." Jimin wiped his cheeks. "Then why did you let me in?" he whispered. The notebook had an answer. "Because Jimin makes me want to live without being afraid of tomorrow." Jimin closed his eyes. The sentence hurt more than the diagnosis. He continued reading. There were pages about their first argument, their first trip together, the night Jimin fell asleep on Jungkook's shoulder, and the morning Jungkook secretly learned how Jimin liked his coffee. There were tiny details. Jimin's habit of humming when he cooked. Jimin's tendency to leave books open face down. Jimin's habit of checking the door twice before going to sleep. Jimin's fear of thunderstorms. Jimin's habit of pretending not to cry whenever something hurt him. Jungkook had noticed everything. Every little thing. Jimin reached the middle of the notebook. The writing changed. The letters became less steady. I received the results today. Jimin's breathing became shallow. I wanted to call Jimin. The next sentence was darker. But I couldn't. I heard his voice in my head. Stay. Jimin's tears fell onto the page. I wanted to stay. Another page. I told myself I would tell him tomorrow. Another. Tomorrow became next week. Another. Next week became next month. Then, today I realized I am not afraid of dying. Jimin stopped. His hands shook. I am afraid of Jimin watching me disappear. Jimin pressed his palm over his mouth. He could barely see through his tears. I don't want his last memories of me to be hospital rooms, medicine bottles and machines. Another page. So I decided to make him hate me before he has the chance to lose me. Jimin stared at the sentence. The pain inside his chest became almost physical. You planned this. He turned the page. I will tell Jimin to find someone else. Another page. I will make him angry. Another. I will make him believe I stopped loving him. Another. I will let him think I was cruel. The final sentence on that page was written darker than the others. If he hates me, maybe losing me won't destroy him. Jimin dropped the notebook. He stood abruptly and walked toward the window. Rain blurred the city outside. He imagined Jungkook sitting in this exact room, writing those words while pretending everything was normal. Jimin imagined Jungkook swallowing his medication before meeting him. Jimin imagined Jungkook smiling when Jimin kissed him goodbye. Jimin imagined how lonely he must have been. And suddenly, anger overwhelmed the sadness. Jimin grabbed his phone. He called Jungkook. No answer. He called again. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Pick up, Jimin whispered. He called a fourth time. This time someone answered. But it wasn't Jungkook. Hello. Jimin froze. The voice belonged to a woman. Who is this? Jimin's heart began pounding. Where is Jungkook? There was a brief silence. Then the woman sighed. Are you Jimin? Yes. My name is Hana, I'm Jungkook's doctor. Jimin closed his eyes. The word doctor sounded terrifying. Where is he? He left the clinic about 20 minutes ago. Why was he there? Another silence. Jungkook didn't want me to tell you. I know. Jimin looked down at the medical folder. I found everything. Hana exhaled slowly. Then you know he has been refusing to let you come to his appointments. Why? Because he believes protecting you means keeping you away. Jimin laughed bitterly. That's not protection. I'll agree. Where is he now? I don't know. Jimin looked toward the door. He told me to marry someone else. Hana was silent. Then she said softly, he mentioned that. Jimin's eyes widened. He told you. He told me he wanted to make sure you would have someone beside you. That's ridiculous. Yes. Why did you let him do this? I tried to convince him to tell you. And he told me you were the only thing keeping him afraid. Jimin's anger disappeared. What does that mean? Hana's voice softened. He said that as long as he loved you, he was afraid of losing you, but somehow that fear also made him want to keep fighting. Jimin sat down again. He shouldn't have made this decision alone. No. Does he know how much I love him? I think he knows. No, Jimin whispered, he doesn't. Jimin looked at the photograph in his hand. He doesn't know because if he knew, he would understand that I don't want a replacement. Hana said nothing. Jimin wiped his face. I don't want Minyi. I suspected that. I don't even know who Minyi is. He is a friend of Jungkook's family. Jungkook arranged the meeting because he believes Minyi can give you the stable life he thinks he cannot. Jimin's jaw tightened. I don't need a stable life. What do you need? Jimin looked at the photograph. Jungkook. The word came out without hesitation. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, you should know something else. Jimin waited. Jungkook isn't only afraid of dying. What else? He is afraid of becoming dependent on you. Jimin frowned. Why? Because he doesn't want you to become his caretaker. Jimin's eyes filled again. He thinks loving him means I would have to take care of him. He thinks loving him means eventually watching him suffer. Jimin lowered his head. That isn't his choice to make. No, thank you for telling me. Jimin. Yes. If you want to help Jungkook, don't promise him that everything will be fine. Jimin looked toward the dark window. What should I promise? Promise him you won't abandon him because he's afraid. The call ended. Jimin sat in silence. Then he opened Jungkook's notebook again. Near the end, he found another entry. I saw Jimin sleeping tonight. The writing was uneven. He was holding my sleeve. I wanted to wake him and tell him everything. But I didn't. I watched him breathe. I counted every breath. I wondered how many mornings I would have left. Jimin's tears fell silently. Then he read the final paragraphs. If Jimin ever finds this notebook, I hope he is angry. I hope he screams at me. I hope he calls me selfish. I hope he tells me that I had no right to decide his future. And if he does... The sentence ended there. Jimin turned the page. The next page was blank. He turned another. Blank. Another. Blank. Then at the very bottom of the last page, there was one sentence. I hope he comes after me anyway. Jimin stared at it. His breathing stopped. Then he smiled through his tears. Of course I will. He stood. He took Jungkook's photograph. He took the notebook. He left the medical folder on the table. Before walking out, Jimin looked around the apartment. Everything carried Jungkook's presence. The grey blanket on the sofa. The half-dead plant near the window. The coffee mug. The jacket hanging beside the door. Jimin touched the jacket sleeve. It still smelled faintly like Jungkook's familiar cologne. Jimin closed his eyes. I won't marry someone else. He whispered the words into the empty apartment. I won't let you decide how I should live. He picked up his phone. There was still no message from Jungkook. Jimin opened their conversation. His fingers moved across the screen. He typed, You told me to marry someone else because you think you're running out of time. He stopped. Then he added, But you forgot something. Another pause. You never asked me how I wanted to spend mine. Jimin pressed send. Then he grabbed his coat. Outside, the rain had begun to weaken. For the first time that night, Jimin wasn't crying. He was afraid. He was furious. But underneath all of it was something stronger. Determination. Jungkook had spent months preparing Jimin for goodbye. Now Jimin was going to spend whatever time remained teaching Jungkook that love was not a promise to stay only when life was easy. Love was also choosing someone when the future was frightening. Even when there were no guarantees. Even when tomorrow was uncertain. Jimin stepped into the rain. And somewhere across the city, Jungkook sat alone in the back of a nearly empty cafe, staring at his phone. His screen lit up. Jimin's message appeared. Jungkook read it once. Then again. His lips trembled. For the first time in months, Jungkook allowed himself to cry. He pressed the phone against his chest. Jimin. His voice broke. He had spent so long trying to teach Jimin how to live without him. He had forgotten that Jimin had already made his choice. And that choice had always been him. Jungkook stared at Jimin's message until the words blurred behind his tears. You never asked me how I wanted to spend mine. He read it again. Then he turned the phone face down. For several minutes, Jungkook sat completely still in the corner of the cafe while rain tapped softly against the glass. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee beans and wet pavement. Somewhere behind the counter, a machine hissed as hot steam escaped from a metal nozzle. People talked quietly around him, unaware that his entire world had just shifted. Jungkook had imagined many possibilities. He had imagined Jimin becoming angry. He had imagined Jimin refusing to speak to him. He had imagined Jimin accepting Minnie. He had even imagined Jimin hatting him. But he had never imagined Jimin choosing him after learning the truth. That was the one possibility Jungkook had been trying desperately to prevent. His phone vibrated again. Jungkook didn't touch it. It vibrated a second time. Then a third. Finally he looked. Jimin had sent another message. Tell me where you are. Jungkook closed his eyes. He knew he should answer. He knew he should tell Jimin to go home. He knew he should continue the lie. But his fingers refused to move. Instead, Jungkook typed 4 words. Please don't come. Jimin answered almost immediately. Too late. Jungkook stared at the message. A small, helpless smile appeared on his face. That was Jimin. Stubborn. Brave. Impossible. Jungkook put his phone away and stood. He couldn't let Jimin find him. Not yet. He walked out of the cafe through the back entrance and pulled his hood over his head. The rain had become a thin mist. He walked without knowing where he was going. Every street seemed familiar. Every passing car reflected yellow light onto the wet pavement. Jungkook eventually stopped beneath the awning of an old bookstore. He looked through the glass. There was a small wooden table near the window. 3 years ago, Jimin had dragged him into that bookstore because Jimin had seen a novel he wanted. Jungkook had complained that he didn't like bookstores. Jimin had spent 2 hours inside anyway. Jungkook remembered sitting in the corner, pretending to read while secretly watching Jimin. That memory hurt. Almost everything beautiful now hurt. His phone vibrated. Jimin, where are you? Jungkook didn't answer. Another message came. You're not allowed to disappear after telling me you're running out of time. Jungkook's throat tightened. Another. You can be angry with me later. Another. You can push me away later. Another. But tonight you're going to let me find you. Jungkook lowered his head. He whispered, why won't you listen? A voice behind him answered. Because you don't make very good decisions when you're scared. Jungkook froze. He turned. Jimin stood several feet away. His hair was damp from the rain. His coat was soaked around the shoulders. His chest rose and fell quickly from running. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Jungkook whispered, how did you find me? Jimin lifted his phone. You forgot I know all your favorite places. Jungkook looked away. You shouldn't be here. I know. You shouldn't have followed me. I know. You read the notebook. Yes. Jungkook swallowed. You know everything. No. Jimin stepped closer. I know enough to understand that you've been lying to me for months. Jungkook's expression hardened. Then you know why I did it. I know why you think you did it. That isn't the same thing. No. Jimin stood directly in front of him. You think you're protecting me. I am. You think making me hate you will make losing you easier. Yes. You think I should marry Minnie so I won't be alone. Jungkook didn't answer. Jimin's voice became softer. And you think you get to decide what happens to me after you're gone? Jungkook looked into his eyes. Yes. Jimin slapped him. The sound echoed beneath the bookstore awning. Jungkook didn't move. Jimin immediately regretted it. His hand remained suspended between them. His eyes filled with tears. I hate that you made me do that. Jungkook touched his cheek. It didn't hurt. I wanted it to. I know. Jimin's voice broke. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of what you've made me feel. Jungkook lowered his hand. I'm sorry. Don't. Jimin. Don't apologize yet. Jimin wiped his tears. I'm not finished. Jungkook nodded. Jimin took a deep breath. You don't get to turn yourself into a martyr. I'm not. You are. No. You are, Jungkook. Jimin stepped closer. You decided that because you're sick you have to become cruel. Jungkook looked away. You decided that loving me means making me hate you. Silence. You decided that my future belongs to someone else. Another silence. And you decided that if you disappear, I should simply continue living, as if you were never the most important person in my life. Jungkook's jaw tightened. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? Jungkook looked at him. The answer came immediately. You. Jimin's eyes filled. Then why are you running? Jungkook couldn't answer. Jimin reached for his hand. Jungkook instinctively pulled away. Jimin reached again. This time he caught it. His fingers wrapped around Jungkook's cold hand. Jungkook stared at their joined hands. You're cold. So are you. You're shaking. So are you. Jimin gave him a sad smile. Maybe we're both scared. Jungkook looked down. I don't want you to watch me get worse. I don't know what will happen. I do. No, you don't. Jungkook's eyes hardened. I know what the doctors told me. And I know what they told you. Jungkook looked at him sharply. You talked to Hana. Yes. What did she say? She said you were afraid of becoming dependent on me. Jungkook looked away. She shouldn't have told you. She was right. About what? You're terrified of needing someone. Jungkook remained silent. Jimin squeezed his hand. You've always been like that. Jungkook frowned. What do you mean? You pretend you don't need anyone. I don't. You do. No. You needed me when your father left. Jungkook's face changed. Jimin immediately knew he had touched something painful. You needed me when you couldn't sleep. Jungkook looked away. You needed me when you thought you had failed. Stop. And you need me now. Jimin. Why is this different? Because this time I might destroy you. Jimin went quiet. Jungkook's voice trembled. I can survive you being angry with me. He swallowed. I can survive you leaving. His eyes filled. But I can't survive watching you destroy your life because of me. Jimin stared at him. You still don't understand. What? I don't consider loving you a destroyed life. Jungkook's tears finally fell. Jimin stepped closer. I don't need you to promise me forever. Jungkook looked at him. I need you to stop lying to me about today. The words settled between them. Simple. Quiet. But powerful. Jungkook slowly nodded. Okay. Jimin wiped Jungkook's cheek with his thumb. Come home. Jungkook hesitated. Jimin. Come home. I don't deserve. Stop deciding what I should give you. Jungkook closed his eyes. For months he had avoided those words. Now he finally understood. Love wasn't something he could control alone. He couldn't decide that Jimin would be better without him. He couldn't decide that Jimin should marry someone else. He couldn't decide how Jimin would grieve. He couldn't even decide how much pain Jimin was willing to endure. Jungkook opened his eyes. Okay. They walked home together. Neither spoke much. Their shoulders occasionally touched. Their hands remained intertwined. When they reached the apartment, Jimin unlocked the door. The room looked exactly as they had left it. The medical folder was still on the table. The notebook remained open. The silver key lay beside it. Jungkook stopped. You read it all. Almost. Jungkook walked toward the table. He picked up the notebook. His thumb brushed the worn cover. I never wanted you to find this. I know. I wrote things I couldn't say. I know. Jimin stood beside him. Why didn't you tell me? Jungkook stared at the pages. Because every time I tried, I imagined your face. What about my face? You'd look at me differently. Jimin frowned. I already look at you differently. Jungkook looked up. How? With more love. Jungkook's lips trembled. Jimin took the notebook from him. Read this. He pointed to one of the pages. Jungkook looked confused. Why? Because I want you to read your own words. Jungkook looked down. The sentence was the one he had written months earlier. I don't want Jimin's last memories of me to be hospital rooms. Jimin looked at him. Do you know what my last memories would be if you keep pushing me away? Jungkook said nothing. Your lies. Jungkook's face fell. Your empty chair. Jimin. Your unanswered calls. Jimin's voice trembled. Your door closing. He touched the page. That isn't the life you want to leave me. Jungkook slowly shook his head. No, then let me make my own memories. Jungkook looked at him. What kind? Jimin smiled sadly. Morning coffee. Jungkook laughed softly. Your coffee is terrible. You still drink it. I love you. Jimin's smile disappeared. The words were too honest. Too immediate. Too painful. Jungkook walked closer. I love you, Jimin. Jimin looked into his eyes. I know. No. Jungkook touched his cheek. I need you to hear it. Jimin nodded. I love you. Jungkook's voice cracked. I love you more than I know how to explain. Jimin closed his eyes. I love you too. They stood there for several seconds. No dramatic music. No thunder. No promises of miracles. Just two people standing in the middle of a quiet apartment, finally refusing to hide from the truth. Jimin leaned forward and rested his forehead against Jungkook's. Jungkook closed his eyes. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to breathe without pretending. I'm scared, he whispered. I know. I don't know how much time I have. I know. I don't want you to see me suffer. I know. I might become someone you don't recognize. Jimin opened his eyes. Then I'll learn the new version of you. Jungkook's lips trembled. And if I become difficult, I'll complain. Jungkook laughed through his tears. And if I become stubborn, I'll become more stubborn. And if I push you away, I'll remind you that you're terrible at getting rid of me. Jungkook smiled. A real smile. The kind Jimin hadn't seen in months. Jimin touched the corner of his mouth. There. What? That smile. Jungkook looked confused. What about it? I missed it. Jungkook's expression softened. I missed yours. Jimin hugged him. Jungkook froze for half a second. Then his arms wrapped around Jimin. He held him carefully, almost desperately. Jimin could feel Jungkook's heartbeat against his chest. Fast. Unsteady. Alive. Jimin closed his eyes. Stay tonight. Jungkook whispered, okay. No hospital. Okay. No disappearing. I'll try. No. Jimin pulled back. Not try. Jungkook looked at him. I promise. Jimin nodded. They sat together on the sofa. Jimin placed the medical folder between them. Tell me everything. Jungkook stared at the folder. Everything. Everything. You'll be angry. Probably. You'll cry. Definitely. You might regret knowing. I won't. Jungkook opened the folder. He began talking. Not as a patient. Not as someone preparing his final goodbye. But as Jungkook. He told Jimin about the first appointment. The fear. The denials. The nights he spent searching for answers. The days he pretended nothing had changed. He told Jimin about sitting in hospital corridors at 3 a.m, watching nurses walk past while he wondered whether he should call. He admitted that sometimes he had stood outside Jimin's apartment and couldn't bring himself to knock. He confessed that he had deleted messages because he didn't want Jimin to hear the fear in his voice. Jimin listened. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes he asked questions. Sometimes he held Jungkook's hand. And sometimes they simply sat in silence. Hours passed. The rain stopped. The city became quiet. At some point, Jimin fell asleep against Jungkook's shoulder. Jungkook looked down. His fingers gently moved through Jimin's hair. He remembered the words in his notebook. I watched him breathe. But tonight was different. Tonight, he wasn't counting breaths because he was preparing to lose Jimin. He was counting them because he was grateful to hear them. Jimin shifted in his sleep. His hand found Jungkook's sleeve. Just like he had written in the notebook. Jungkook smiled. You still do that, he whispered. Jimin didn't wake. Jungkook leaned back against the sofa. For the first time, the future frightened him without completely destroying him. He didn't know how much time remained. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know whether his treatment would work. He didn't know how many difficult days waited ahead. But he finally understood something. He didn't need to know the ending to choose the next moment. And the next moment was simple. Jimin was asleep beside him. His hand was holding Jungkook's sleeve. The apartment was warm. The rain had stopped. And Jungkook was still here. So he stayed. He stayed through the night. He stayed until morning light slowly entered the room. And when Jimin finally opened his eyes, Jungkook was still there. Jimin looked at him sleepily. You didn't leave. Jungkook smiled. No. Jimin tightened his fingers around Jungkook's sleeve. Good. Jungkook looked toward the window. Sunlight touched the wet streets outside. For the first time, tomorrow didn't feel like an enemy. It was simply another day. And Jungkook decided he would face it with Jimin, one day at a time. Morning arrived quietly, almost too gently for everything that had happened during the night. A pale ribbon of sunlight slipped through the curtains and rested across Jimin's face. For several seconds, Jimin remained still, half asleep, his cheek pressed against Jungkook's shoulder and his fingers still curled around Jungkook's sleeve. Then he remembered. The hospital folder. The notebook. The diagnosis. Jungkook. Jimin slowly lifted his head. Jungkook was already awake. He was looking at him with the faintest smile. You're staring, Jimin murmured. I've been staring for 10 minutes. That's creepy. I know. Jimin smiled. It was a small smile, but Jungkook noticed it immediately. He always noticed Jimin's smiles. Especially the ones that appeared when Jimin was trying not to cry. You didn't sleep, Jimin said. A little. You're lying. Maybe. Jimin sat upright and studied him. You look exhausted. So do you. I was sleeping on you. You snored. Jimin's eyes widened. I do not snore. You do. I hate you. Jungkook smiled. There you are. Jimin stared at him. What? That? What? You said you hate me. Jimin's expression softened. Don't get used to it. Jungkook laughed quietly. The sound filled the apartment. For a moment they were simply themselves again. Not patient and caretaker. Not two people terrified of an uncertain future. Just Jimin and Jungkook. Two people sitting on an old sofa after a sleepless night. Jimin eventually stood. I'm making breakfast. You're cooking. Yes. That sounds dangerous. Jimin turned around. Do you want breakfast or not? I do. Then stop insulting the chef. You're not a chef. Jimin pointed toward the kitchen. 5 minutes. You said that yesterday. And you took 30. Then you know what to expect. Jimin disappeared into the kitchen. Jungkook watched him. The familiar sounds began. Cabinet doors opening. A spoon hitting the counter. The refrigerator door closing. Jimin humming softly. Jungkook smiled. He had missed this. More than he had realized. He had spent months imagining the end of his life. He had forgotten how beautiful an ordinary morning could be. Jimin returned carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one in front of Jungkook. Jungkook took a sip. His face immediately changed. This is terrible. Jimin gasped. You said you loved me. I do. And I didn't say I loved your coffee. Jimin grabbed his cup. Give it back. No, you don't like it. I'll drink it. Why? Because you made it. Jimin stared at him. Then he sat beside him. Idiot. Jungkook smiled. You're idiot. Jimin's eyes lowered. He wanted to enjoy the moment. But the medical folder remained on the table. Reality was still there. After breakfast, Jimin moved it closer. We need to talk about treatment. Jungkook's smile disappeared. I know. You said last night that you were following the doctor's plan. I am. Everything. Jungkook hesitated. Jimin noticed. Everything. I missed a few appointments. How many? 2. Jungkook. I know. And medication. I missed some. How many? Jungkook looked down. More than I should have. Jimin closed his eyes. He was angry. Not because Jungkook was sick. Because Jungkook had been treating his own life as though it didn't matter. You can't do that. I know. No, Jungkook, you don't. Jungkook looked at him. You can't tell me you don't want me to suffer because of you while you're making decisions that could make things worse. I was scared. Jimin's anger softened. I know. I didn't want every day to become about hospitals. It doesn't have to. I didn't want you to spend your time waiting in clinics. You're still not listening. Jungkook frowned. What? I don't care where we spend our time. Jimin reached across the table. I care that we spend it together. Jungkook looked at their hands. Jimin's fingers gently wrapped around his. You don't have to make your illness beautiful. Jungkook's eyes lifted. You don't have to turn it into some tragic love story. Jimin's voice shook. You can be afraid, you can be angry, you can complain, you can hate the hospital, you can hate the treatment, you can tell me you're tired. He squeezed Jungkook's hand. But don't disappear inside your fear. Jungkook swallowed. I'll try. Jimin gave him a look. Jungkook corrected himself. I'll do better. Good. A silence followed. Then Jungkook asked, are you really not going to meet Minyi? Jimin stared at him. Absolutely not. You might like him. No, you don't know him. I don't need to. Jimin, I love you. Jungkook looked away. You shouldn't make decisions because of guilt. I am not. Then why? Because you're the person I chose before I knew you were sick. Jungkook became silent. And I'm still choosing you now. His eyes filled. Jimin continued. Your illness didn't create my love. Jungkook wiped his cheek. I don't know what to say. For once, don't say anything. Jungkook smiled faintly. Okay. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Jimin cleaned the apartment. Jungkook tried to help. He was immediately ordered back onto the sofa. You're supposed to rest. I can fold clothes. You fold them badly. I've never seen you fold clothes. Exactly. Jungkook laughed. By noon, the apartment felt different. The same walls. The same furniture. The same photographs. But something had changed. There were no more secrets between them. At least Jimin thought there weren't. They went to the clinic together that afternoon. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and cold air. Machines beeped behind closed doors. Nurses moved quickly through the corridors. Somewhere nearby, a child was laughing, completely unaware of the seriousness surrounding them. Jungkook walked beside Jimin. Their hands were intertwined. Several people glanced at them. Jungkook didn't care. Neither did Jimin. When they reached the examination room, Hana greeted them. She looked relieved. You came. Jimin nodded. Together. Hana looked at Jungkook. I see that. Jungkook gave her a tired smile. Don't look so surprised. I am. Jimin sat beside him. Hana opened the medical file. We need to review your recent results. Jungkook nodded. Jimin listened carefully. The terminology was complicated. There were treatment options. There were risks. There were uncertainties. Nothing was guaranteed. That was the hardest part. Jimin wanted certainty. He wanted someone to tell him exactly what would happen. He wanted a date when Jungkook would be healthy again. He wanted a promise. But medicine didn't offer promises. Only possibilities. After the appointment, Jimin and Jungkook walked outside. The afternoon sun was warm. Jungkook stopped beneath a tree. What are you thinking? Jimin looked at him. That I hate hospitals. Jungkook laughed. Me too. I hate that they make everything sound so serious. It is serious. I know. Jimin sighed. But I still hate it. Jungkook smiled. They walked toward a small park across the street. Children were running across the grass. An elderly couple sat on a bench. A man was feeding birds. Jimin and Jungkook found an empty bench. They sat. For a while neither spoke. Then Jungkook said, I have a list. A list of what? Things I want to do. Jimin turned toward him. What things? Before. He stopped. Jimin waited. Jungkook looked at him. Before I get too tired. Jimin's heart tightened. Show me. Jungkook pulled his phone from his pocket. He opened a note. The list wasn't long. Watch the sunrise at the beach. Eat at the tiny restaurant near the river. Visit the old bookstore. Take a train without planning where to get off. Cook dinner together. Take a photograph every month. See snow. Go camping. Spend one entire day doing absolutely nothing. Jimin smiled. That's all. There are more. Show me. Jungkook hesitated. Then he scrolled. Learn how to dance properly. Jimin laughed. You can't dance. I can. You're terrible. You've never seen me. I've seen you. When? In my dreams. Jungkook laughed. Jimin took the phone. There was another item. Write a song. Jimin looked at him. You want to write a song? Yes. About what? Jungkook smiled. You. Jimin's expression softened. You're going to make me cry. That's not my fault. It is. Jungkook took the phone back. There is one more. What? Take Jimin somewhere he's never been. Jimin stared at him. Where? I don't know yet. You made a list without knowing. Yes. That makes no sense. It's supposed to be a surprise. Jimin smiled. Okay. Jungkook looked at him. Okay. Yes. You're agreeing without knowing where. I trust you. Those 3 words silenced Jungkook. Trust. After everything he had done. After all the lies. Jimin still trusted him. Jungkook looked down. I don't deserve that. Jimin shook his head. Stop saying that. I'm serious. So am I. Jimin touched his shoulder. Love isn't a reward you earn. Jungkook looked at him. Then what is it? Something you choose. Jungkook smiled. I choose you. Jimin leaned against his shoulder. And I choose you. They remained on the bench until the sun began to lower. Later that evening, Jungkook surprised Jimin by taking him to the old bookstore. The same bookstore from 3 years earlier. Jimin looked around. You remembered. I remember everything about you. Jimin smiled. They walked between the shelves. The scent of old paper surrounded them. Jimin ran his fingers across the spines of the books. Jungkook watched him. You still do that. Do what? Touch every book. I like the feeling. I know. Jimin found a book he had wanted for years. He pulled it from the shelf. Jungkook looked at the price. Absolutely not. Why? It's expensive. Jungkook. No. Jungkook. No. Jimin smiled. You're sick, not broke. Jungkook laughed. That was cruel. You deserve it. They bought the book. Outside, the evening sky had turned orange. Jimin held the bag. Jungkook held Jimin's hand. Neither noticed the person standing across the street. A man in a dark coat watched them quietly. His eyes remained fixed on Jungkook. Then he pulled out his phone. He made a call. He's with Jimin. A pause. Yes. Another pause. No, he hasn't told him everything. The man looked across the street again. Jungkook was laughing. Jimin was smiling. They looked happy. The man lowered his voice. Then we still have time. He ended the call. Across the street, Jungkook suddenly stopped. Jimin looked at him. What happened? Jungkook turned his head. For a second, he thought he saw someone familiar. But the person was already gone. Jungkook frowned. Nothing. Jimin squeezed his hand. Come on. Jungkook nodded. They continued walking. But for the first time since he had told Jimin the truth, Jungkook felt a strange uneasiness. He didn't know why. He only knew that someone had been watching. And somewhere inside his pocket, his phone vibrated. A message appeared from an unknown number. You should have left Jimin alone. Jungkook stopped walking. His face changed. Jimin noticed immediately. What is it? Jungkook stared at the screen. Another message appeared. You don't know who you're putting him in danger from. Jungkook's hand tightened around the phone. Jimin stepped closer. Jungkook. Jungkook looked at him. For the first time that day, the warmth disappeared from his eyes. He knew his illness was not the only thing threatening their future. And whatever secret he had been trying to protect Jimin from might have been far more dangerous than either of them had realized. Jungkook. Jimin's voice pulled him back. Jungkook quickly locked his phone and slipped it into his pocket. Nothing. Jimin stared at him. You just went pale. I'm tired. That isn't what happened. Jungkook looked away. Jimin stepped directly in front of him. Show me the message. No. Jungkook. Jimin, please. The word sounded different this time. Not defensive. Afraid. Jimin's expression softened. What did they say? Jungkook remained silent. Was it about your treatment? No. Then what? Jungkook finally looked at him. They said you could be in danger because of me. Jimin's face went still. What does that mean? I don't know. You're lying. I don't know everything. But you know something. Jungkook looked down. The silence between them became heavy. Jimin slowly reached for his hand. Tell me. Jungkook took a deep breath. There are things about my illness I never told you. Jimin's fingers tightened. What things? Before I met you, I was involved in something. What? I worked for someone. Jimin frowned. Doing what? Nothing illegal. Then why are you scared? Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. The street around them seemed suddenly colder. Cars passed. People walked by. Music drifted from a nearby restaurant. Yet Jimin could hear nothing clearly except Jungkook's voice. What did you see? Jungkook looked across the street. Financial records. Jimin blinked. What? Someone was stealing money from a company, a lot of money. And you found out? Yes. What happened? I reported it. Jimin waited. And then, they tried to make me disappear. Jimin's face lost its color. Jungkook, I survived. Then why are you still afraid? Because I didn't know who was behind it. Jimin stared at him. You thought they would come back. They never stopped looking. The words were barely audible. Jimin suddenly understood the strange moments from the past few years. The unexplained phone calls. The anonymous letters. The nights Jungkook had insisted on walking him home. The way Jungkook always checked the street before entering a building. The reason Jungkook never liked sharing his location. Jimin had thought it was habit. It had been fear. You knew this whole time. Yes. And you still let me get close to you. I tried not to. But you did. I couldn't stop. Jimin looked at him. Jungkook's eyes were full of guilt. You should have told me. I thought keeping you away would protect you. Jimin almost laughed. Again. Jungkook lowered his head. I know. No, you don't. Jimin stepped closer. You keep deciding that secrets are protection. Jungkook said nothing. You hid your illness. I was afraid. You hid the people threatening you. I was afraid. You told me to marry someone else. I was terrified. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. And every time you were afraid, you made a decision for both of us. Jungkook looked at him. I don't know how to love you without trying to protect you. Then learned. The answer was simple. Jungkook stared at Jimin. Learn with me. For several seconds, Jungkook couldn't speak. Then he nodded. Okay. They returned to the apartment. Jungkook locked the door. Then checked it again. Jimin noticed. You've done that before. Every night. Why? Because sometimes I thought someone was following me. Jimin walked toward the window. Do you think someone followed us tonight? I don't know. Did you recognize the person? No. Jimin looked outside. The street was quiet. A few lights remained on in distant windows. Nothing seemed unusual. But Jungkook's phone vibrated again. This time there was an image. Jungkook opened it. His heart stopped. It was a photograph of Jimin standing outside the bookstore. Taken only minutes earlier. Jimin saw his expression. What? Jungkook immediately turned the screen away. But Jimin had already seen enough. That's me. Jungkook nodded. Who took that? I don't know. When? Tonight. Jimin stared at the photograph. A chill moved through him. They were close. Yes. Jungkook. I know. Another message appeared. You were warned. Jungkook stared at it. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Hello. Silence. Then a distorted voice spoke. You should have listened. Jungkook's expression hardened. Who are you? Do you know? No. You've always known. Jungkook's breathing became shallow. What do you want? Distance. From Jimin. Yes. Leave him alone. A low laugh came through the phone. You still think this is about you? Jungkook froze. What does that mean? Your illness isn't the reason you're running out of time. The call ended. Jungkook stood motionless. Jimin watched him. What did they say? Jungkook looked at him. He couldn't answer. Jungkook. They said. He swallowed. They said my illness isn't the reason I'm running out of time. Jimin's eyes widened. What? Jungkook immediately opened the medical folder. He began flipping through the pages. Nothing. Everything appeared normal. But then he noticed something. A document he had never seen before was missing. His blood test report from 6 months earlier. Jungkook looked at Hana's name. He called her. She answered quickly. Jungkook. Hana, I need you to check something. What? My report from 6 months ago. A pause. What about it? I never received the complete copy. Hana became silent. Jungkook. What? I thought you knew. His heart began pounding. Knew what? Hana took a breath. The diagnosis you were given wasn't the complete diagnosis. Jungkook's hand tightened around the phone. What are you talking about? There were additional results. Why weren't they included in my file? I don't know. Who removed them? I don't know. Hana. I was told the results had been transferred. To whom? Another silence. Then Hana whispered a name. Jungkook's face changed. That's impossible. Why? Because that person died years ago. Jimin stared at him. Who? Jungkook didn't answer. Hana continued. Jungkook, you need to come to the hospital immediately. Why? Because I found another copy of your results. Where? In a restricted archive. And I think someone altered your medical records. Jungkook couldn't breathe. What does the original report say? Hana hesitated. Your condition is serious. Jungkook closed his eyes. I know. No. Hana's voice trembled. You don't understand. What? The original report doesn't say your condition is terminal. Silence. Jimin's eyes widened. Jungkook slowly opened his eyes. What? It says your symptoms were caused by something else. Jungkook's face went completely pale. What something else? I don't know yet. Then find out. I am trying. Hana. Yes. Could someone have deliberately made me believe I was dying? Hana didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence was enough. Jungkook lowered the phone. Jimin stepped closer. What did she say? Jungkook looked at him. For months he had believed he was running out of time. He had destroyed his own happiness because he thought his future was already written. He had told Jimin to marry someone else. He had prepared letters. He had prepared goodbyes. He had prepared himself to die. But now one possibility had entered his mind. Maybe he wasn't dying. Maybe someone wanted him to believe he was. Jimin touched his arm. Jungkook. He looked at Jimin. I might have been wrong. About what? Everything. Jimin waited. The doctors may have been looking at the wrong information. Jimin's breathing caught. What does that mean? I don't know yet. Jungkook looked at the medical folder. But if someone changed my records... He stopped. Jimin finished the sentence. Then someone wanted you to believe you were dying. Neither spoke. The apartment suddenly felt too small. Every hidden letter, every hospital visit, every moment Jungkook had cried alone, every time he had pushed Jimin away. Everything might have been built on a lie. Jimin grabbed Jungkook's hand. Then we find the truth. Jungkook stared at him. What if the truth is worse? Then we face it. What if someone really is trying to hurt us? Then we face that too. What if you get hurt? Jimin stepped closer. Then you protect me by telling me the truth, not by disappearing. Jungkook's eyes filled. He nodded. Okay. His phone vibrated again. A new message. Jungkook opened it. There was only one sentence. Ask Hana who ordered the original report destroyed. Jungkook stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. Ask her what happened to your brother. Jungkook stopped breathing. His hand began to shake. Jimin noticed. Jungkook. Jungkook slowly looked up. His expression had completely changed. Jimin. What? My brother. Jimin frowned. What about him? He didn't die in an accident. Jimin stared at him. What are you saying? Jungkook looked at the phone. For years, he had believed the story his family had given him. For years, he had believed his brother's death was an accident. But now someone was telling him otherwise. And suddenly, memories he had buried began returning. A red car. A broken streetlight. Rain. A man's voice. And one sentence whispered into his ear when he was 17. Forget what you saw. Jungkook stumbled backward. Jimin caught him. What happened? Jungkook pressed his hand against his temple. I remember. What? My brother. Jimin held him tighter. What do you remember? Jungkook looked at him, terrified. I was there that night. The room became silent. I saw who was driving. Jimin's heart pounded. Who? Jungkook stared at the dark window. Then he whispered the name of the person he had trusted most for years. And Jimin realized that the person responsible for destroying Jungkook's past might still be close enough to destroy their future. Minye. Jimin stared at Jungkook. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The name hung between them like something poisonous. Minye, Jimin repeated. Jungkook nodded slowly. My brother's death was connected to Minye. Jimin's mind struggled to process the words. But you said Minye was your family's friend. He was. You said your family trusted him. They did. And you arranged for me to meet him. Jungkook closed his eyes. I didn't know. Jimin stepped backward. You didn't know. I didn't know he was involved. But you trusted him enough to ask me to marry him. Jungkook's face twisted with guilt. I thought he was safe. Jimin looked toward the window. The night suddenly seemed darker. He remembered the photographs. Minyi standing across the street. Watching them. The unknown messages. The altered medical records. The warning. Everything began fitting together. Jimin turned back. How did you remember? Jungkook sat down heavily on the sofa. I was 17. His voice became distant. My brother Seojun was 23. He had discovered something about Minyi's father. Money was disappearing from several accounts. Seojun found evidence. Jimin sat beside him. What kind of evidence? I don't know exactly. I was never supposed to know. Jungkook rubbed his palms together. But one night Seojun told me he was leaving. Leaving where? I don't remember. Why? He said someone was following him. Jimin listened carefully. What happened next? I followed him. Jungkook. I know. He swallowed. I shouldn't have. The memory seemed to pull him backward. I remember rain, heavy rain. Seojun's car was parked near an intersection. I was hiding behind a wall because he told me not to come closer. Jungkook's fingers trembled. Then another car arrived. Minyi. Yes. He got out. Jungkook's eyes became distant. He argued with Seojun. What did they say? I couldn't hear everything. Then what? They started fighting. Jungkook's voice became quieter. Seojun gave him something. What? A small black drive. Jimin leaned forward. And then, Minyi took it. Jungkook closed his eyes. Seojun turned away. He took a shaky breath. Then Minyi got back into his car. Jimin waited. He drove straight toward Seojun. Jimin's hand covered his mouth. I thought he would stop. Jungkook's voice broke. He didn't. Jimin reached for his hand. Jungkook continued. Seojun fell. The apartment became silent. I ran toward him. Jungkook stared at the floor. He was still alive. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. He looked at me. What did he say? Jungkook's lips trembled. He told me to run. Jimin squeezed his hand. I didn't understand. Jungkook's voice cracked. I thought he was going to die. But he survived. No. Jungkook shook his head. He died before the ambulance arrived. Jimin lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. Jungkook nodded. My family told everyone it was an accident. Why? Because they were afraid. Of Minyi. Yes. And you. I was told I had imagined everything. Jimin frowned. How could they convince you? I was 17. Jungkook looked at him. I was grieving, I was terrified. They told me the rain had made everything confusing. They said Minyi wasn't even there. But you remembered him. I buried the memory. Jimin stared at him. Until tonight. Jungkook nodded. The message brought it back. Jimin looked at his phone. Then Minyi knows you remember. I think so. That's why he wanted me near him. Jungkook's expression changed. No. What? He didn't want you near him. Jimin waited. He wanted you away from me. Jimin understood. He thought if I married him, I'd stop asking questions. Maybe. Oh. Jimin looked at Jungkook. He wanted me as leverage. Jungkook's face tightened. That is what I'm afraid of. Jimin stood. We need to go to the police. Jungkook looked at him. We don't have proof. We have the messages. Anonymous. The medical records. Not enough. The memories. Memories aren't evidence. Jimin's frustration grew. Then what are we supposed to do? Jungkook stood. We find the evidence. Where? The black drive. Jimin looked at him. You said Minnie took it. Yes. Then it's gone. Maybe. Jungkook walked toward the bookshelves. He stopped in front of an old photograph. It showed Jungkook and Seojun standing beside a lake. Jungkook stared at it. Seojun was paranoid. About Minnie. About everyone. Jungkook took the photograph from the shelves. There was one place he trusted. Where? Our grandfather's cabin. Jimin looked at him. Did Seojun hide things there? He used to. Then maybe the drives could still be there. Jungkook looked at the photographs. Or something that tells us where it went. Jimin grabbed his coat. Let's go. Jungkook looked at the clock. It's almost midnight. I don't care. You should sleep. You're joking. No, Jungkook. Jimin walked toward him. You spent months believing you were going to die because someone lied to you. Jungkook said nothing. I'm not going to sit here and wait. Jungkook looked into his eyes. You're really coming? Yes. You know this could be dangerous. Yes. You could get hurt. I know. Jungkook stared at him. Then he nodded. Stay beside me. I will. They left the apartment. The streets were nearly empty. Jungkook drove while Jimin sat beside him. For almost an hour. Neither spoke. The city gradually disappeared behind them. Buildings became houses. Houses became fields. The road narrowed. Trees surrounded them. The cabin was located near a lake several miles outside the city. Jimin watched the darkness through the window. Did you come here after Seojun died? Once. When? A week after the funeral. Why? I thought he had left something behind. Did you find anything? No. Jimin looked at him. Why didn't you return? Because I was afraid of remembering. The car continued through the forest. Finally, headlights illuminated a narrow wooden bridge. Beyond it stood the cabin. Jungkook parked. They stepped out. Cold air immediately surrounded them. The lake was black beneath the moonlight. The cabin looked abandoned. Jimin shivered. It's freezing. Jungkook took off his jacket. Here, you'll be cold. I'll survive. Jimin accepted it. They approached the door. Jungkook stopped. What? There. A faint scratch marked the wooden frame. 3 small lines. Jungkook's expression changed. What is it? My brother made that. How do you know? He used to mark places he had searched. Jimin touched the marks. Then someone has been here. Yes. The door wasn't locked. Jungkook slowly pushed it open. The smell of dust and old wood filled the room. Moonlight entered through cracked windows. Jimin turned on his flashlight. The cabin was small. A table. 2 chairs. A fireplace. A bookshelf. A bedroom. Jungkook walked toward the fireplace. He ran his fingers along the mantel. Nothing. Then he noticed a loose wooden panel. Jimin. Jimin came closer. Jungkook pulled the panel away. Behind it was a narrow compartment. Inside sat an old metal box. Jimin's heart began pounding. Jungkook pulled it out. The box was covered in dust. There was no lock. He opened it. Inside were several photographs. A notebook. A small key. And an envelope. Jungkook picked up the envelope. His name was written on it. But the handwriting wasn't Seojun's. Jimin noticed immediately. That's not your brother's handwriting. I know. Jungkook opened it. Inside was one sheet of paper. He read it. His expression slowly changed. What? Jimin moved closer. What does it say? Jungkook handed him the paper. Jimin read. If you're reading this, then someone has already told you that Seojun died in an accident. Jimin's heart raced. He continued. He did not. Jimin looked at Jungkook. The next sentence was worse. He was killed because he discovered the truth. Jungkook closed his eyes. Jimin kept reading. The person responsible has been protected by people you trust. Below that was another line. Do not trust Minyi. Jimin looked up. We were right. Jungkook didn't answer. There was another page. More importantly, do not trust the person who gave you the diagnosis. Jimin froze. He looked at Jungkook. Your doctor. Jungkook's face became pale. Hana. Maybe. The note continued. Your illness is connected to the same organization. Jimin's heart stopped. He read the final sentence. They are not trying to kill Jungkook. A long silence followed. Jungkook slowly took the paper from Jimin. His eyes moved across the final words. They are trying to make him believe he is dying. Jungkook's breathing became uneven. Jimin grabbed his arm. Why? Jungkook looked at the photographs inside the box. One showed Seojun standing beside 3 men. Another showed Minyi. The third showed someone Jungkook recognized immediately. Jungkook dropped the photographs. No. Jimin picked one up. Who is that? Jungkook stared at the person in the picture. His face had become completely white. That can't be. Jungkook. That man. He stepped backward. I know him. Who is he? Jungkook's voice was barely audible. My doctor. Jimin's heart sank. Hana. No. Jungkook shook his head. The doctor who diagnosed me. Jimin stared at the photograph. Then he looked at the note again. Everything suddenly made sense. The altered medical records. The missing report. The mysterious warnings. The connection to Seojun. And Jungkook's illness. But before either of them could speak, headlights suddenly appeared through the cabin windows. A vehicle had stopped outside. Jimin turned off the flashlight. Jungkook pulled him behind the wall. They stood in darkness. The car door opened. Footsteps approached. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Jungkook held Jimin's hand. Neither breathed. A shadow passed across the window. Then someone knocked on the cabin door. 3 times. Jungkook's fingers tightened around Jimin's. A familiar voice came from outside. Jungkook. Jimin's eyes widened. Jungkook knew the voice. He had heard it many times. The man outside spoke again. You shouldn't have come here. Jungkook stared at the door. Then the handle slowly began to turn. The door opened slowly. Jungkook pulled Jimin farther behind the wall, shielding him with his body as the cold night air entered the cabin. A man's silhouette appeared in the doorway. For several seconds, the figure remained motionless. Then the porch light illuminated his face. Jungkook's blood turned cold. It wasn't Minyi. It was Dr. Kang. The man who had given Jungkook his original diagnosis. The man whose photograph had been hidden inside Seojun's box. The man Jungkook had trusted when he believed his life was ending. Dr. Kang looked around the cabin. You were always curious, he said quietly. Jungkook stepped out from behind the wall. Stay away from Jimin. Dr. Kang smiled faintly. So the rumors were true. What rumors? That you finally stopped believing everything people told you. Jimin stepped beside Jungkook. You lied to him. Dr. Kang's eyes moved toward Jimin. You should not have come. I don't take orders from you. Dr. Kang's expression hardened. Neither did Seojun. Jungkook's fists clenched. You killed my brother. I didn't. You were there. Yes. You lied to me. Yes. Why? Dr. Kang looked at the metal box in Jungkook's hand. Because your brother discovered something that could destroy powerful people. What? An organization. Jimin frowned. What organization? Dr. Kang didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked slowly into the cabin. Jungkook stepped forward. Don't come any closer. Dr. Kang stopped. You think I'm your enemy. You manipulated my medical records. Yes. You convinced me I was dying. Yes. You made me believe I had no future. Dr. Kang looked at him. Yes. Jimin's breathing became heavier. Why? Dr. Kang's eyes softened. Because it was the only way to keep you alive. Jungkook laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe that? No. Good. Because I don't need you to believe me. Jungkook stepped closer. You destroyed years of my life. Dr. Kang looked at him. I gave you years. Jungkook froze. What? Dr. Kang's voice became quieter. The disease in your original records was real. Jimin stared at him. What are you saying? You were sick. Jungkook's face tightened. But, Dr. Kang sighed. But you were never terminal. Silence. Jimin closed his eyes. Jungkook stared at Dr. Kang. Then why? Because someone was trying to force you into treatment you would never survive. What treatment? Dr. Kang looked toward the metal box. The same treatment that killed Seojun. Jimin's blood ran cold. What happened to Seojun? He refused to cooperate. Jungkook stepped forward. You said he was killed because he discovered the truth. He discovered the truth and tried to expose it. By whom? Dr. Kang hesitated. Then he said, Minyi's family. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Minyi knew. Yes. Why did he pretend to be my friend? To get close to you. Jimin looked at Jungkook. That's why he wanted me to marry him. Dr. Kang nodded. Minyi believed you had something Seojun left behind. Jungkook looked at the metal box. The drive. Yes. But it's not here. No. Jungkook frowned. Then what is? Dr. Kang looked at the photographs. Evidence. Evidence of what? The entire operation. Jimin looked down at the photographs. Then why didn't you take it? Because I was waiting for Jungkook. Jungkook stared at him. For me? Yes. Why? Because Seojun told me not to trust anyone except you. Jungkook's expression changed. My brother said that. Yes. Before he died. Yes. Dr. Kang reached inside his coat. Jungkook immediately stepped in front of Jimin. Don't. Dr. Kang slowly removed a small object. A black flash drive. Jungkook stared at it. The drive. Dr. Kang held it out. Seojun gave this to me before the accident. Jungkook's breathing stopped. You said Minyi took it. He took a copy. Why didn't you tell me? Because someone was monitoring you. Jungkook looked around the cabin. Who? Dr. Kang's expression became serious. Your family. Jimin's eyes widened. What? Munya's father didn't work alone. Jungkook shook his head. My family would never. They already knew about Spudgeon. Stop lying. Dr. Kang took a step closer. Ask your mother. Jungkook froze. Dr. Kang continued. Ask her why Spudgeon called her before he died. Jungkook's face changed. I never knew. Because she never told you. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Do you think she knew? Jungkook didn't answer. His entire childhood suddenly seemed filled with unanswered questions. Dr. Kung placed the flash drive on the table. Take it. Jungkook didn't move. What happens if I do? You learn everything. And then you decide what to do with the truth. Jungkook looked at Jimin. Jimin nodded. Jungkook took the drive. The moment his fingers touched it, the cabin lights went out. A loud crash came from outside. Jimin jumped. What was that? Dr. Kung immediately moved toward the window. Get down. Jungkook pulled Jimin to the floor. A second later, the cabin window shattered. Glass flew across the room. Jimin screamed. Jungkook covered him with his body. Dr. Kung drew a weapon and moved toward the opposite wall. Stay down. Another impact struck the cabin. Someone was outside. Jungkook's heart pounded. Who are they? Dr. Kang looked toward the door. Munya. Jimin's eyes widened. You're sure? Yes. The door burst open. 2 men entered. Dr. Kung moved quickly. The cabin filled with chaos. Jungkook pulled Jimin toward the bedroom. Run. They stumbled through the narrow hallway. Jimin grabbed the metal box. Jungkook took the flash drive. They reached the back door. Locked. Jungkook. I know. He kicked it. Once. Twice. The wood cracked. Again. Jungkook kicked harder. The door opened. Cold air hit them. They ran into the forest. Branches scratched Jimin's face. Mud soaked their shoes. Jungkook held his hand tightly. Behind them, voices echoed. Stop. They ran faster. Jungkook's breathing became uneven. Jimin noticed. Are you okay? Keep running. Jungkook. I'm fine. You're not. I can keep going. Jimin saw him stumble. He grabbed Jungkook's arm. Slow down. We can't. You're exhausted. I don't care. Jimin pulled him behind a large tree. They crouched in darkness. Footsteps passed nearby. Jungkook pressed a hand against his chest. Jimin looked frightened. Your medication. In my pocket. Take it. I can't. Why? We have to stay quiet. You're shaking. Jungkook looked at him. I'm okay. No. Jimin pulled the medication from his pocket and handed it to him. Take it. Jungkook swallowed it. They waited. The footsteps gradually disappeared. Jimin leaned against the tree. His breathing was fast. Jungkook looked at him. Are you hurt? No. Your face. Jimin touched his cheek. A small cut. It's nothing. Jungkook gently wiped the blood away. I promised I'd protect you. Jimin looked at him. You don't have to protect me from everything. I do. No. Jimin took his hand. We protect each other. Jungkook smiled weakly. Okay. They waited until the forest became quiet. Then they returned toward the cabin from another direction. The men were gone. Dr. Kung was nowhere to be seen. Only the broken windows remained. Jungkook looked around. Where did he go? Jimin shook his head. I don't know. The metal box was still with them. The flash drive was still in Jungkook's pocket. They returned to the car. Jungkook locked the doors. Jimin immediately looked at the flash drive. Can we open it? Not here. Why? If someone is monitoring it. Then where? Somewhere safe. Jimin looked at him. Do you know a place? Jungkook nodded. There is one. They drove for nearly an hour. Neither spoke. Finally, they arrived at an old apartment building in the city. Jungkook parked underground. They entered through a side door. Jimin looked around. Whose place is this? My brother's. Jimin stopped. Spudgeon's. Yes. I thought it was abandoned. It was. Jungkook pulled a key from his pocket. How do you still have it? My mother gave it to me years ago. He unlocked the door. The apartment smelled of dust and old paper. Jimin turned on the lights. Everything remained exactly as Spudgeon had left it. Books, photographs, a guitar, an old desk. Jungkook walked slowly toward the desk. He touched the chair. He used to sit here. Jimin stayed beside him. Jungkook opened a drawer. Inside was an old laptop. He turned it on. The screen flickered. The battery was nearly empty. Jimin connected the charger. Do you think this works? I don't know. The laptop finally started. There was one password screen. Jungkook tried Spudgeon's birthday. Wrong. He tried his mother's birthday. Wrong. He tried his own. Wrong. Jimin looked at him. Try something he used to call you. Jungkook smiled faintly. He called me Rabbit. Jimin laughed softly. Of course he did. Jungkook entered it. Wrong. He tried another. Still wrong. Then Jimin noticed something. Wait. What? The photograph. Jungkook looked at the photograph on the desk. It showed Spudgeon and Jungkook beside the lake. There was a date written on the back. Jimin picked it up. Maybe it's not a password. Jungkook looked at him. What if it's the date he hid the drive? They entered the date. The computer unlocked. A folder appeared. Spudgeon. Inside were dozens of files. Financial documents. Photographs. Audio recordings. Names. Dates. Payments. Jimin's hand covered his mouth. This is everything. Jungkook stared at the screen. Then he saw one file. Medical. He opened it. His own name appeared. Jimin stepped closer. There were records from years ago. The date was 6 months before Jungkook had ever visited Dr. Kung. Jimin looked confused. How could they have your medical records before you were diagnosed? Jungkook stared at the screen. Then he saw the signature. His blood ran cold. The doctor who had signed the preliminary report was not Dr. Kung. It was someone else. Someone Jimin recognized too. Jimin whispered the name. No. Jungkook looked at him. What? Jimin pointed to the screen. The signature belonged to Jungkook's mother. Jungkook stared at it. His face slowly collapsed. It's my mother. The laptop suddenly displayed a new notification. A file had been remotely accessed. Someone else was inside the system. Jimin stepped backward. Jungkook. I see it. The screen went black. Then a message appeared. You should have listened when I told you to let Jimin go. Jungkook's blood turned cold. A second message appeared. You have until sunrise. Jimin looked at him. Until sunrise for what? A final line appeared. After that, Jimin pays for what you refused to give us. Jungkook's eyes widened. What do they want? The answer appeared beneath the message. The original drive. Jungkook looked at the flash drive in his hand. Then at Jimin's. And suddenly, he understood that the people hunting them didn't want him dead. They wanted something Spudgeon had hidden. Something powerful enough to make them threaten Jimin. Jungkook closed his fist around the drive. He looked at Jimin. No matter what happens, you stay with me. Jimin shook his head. No. Jungkook frowned. You stay with me. Jimin took his hand. We face this together. Jungkook stared at him. Then he nodded. Outside, the first hint of dawn began appearing beyond the windows. But they both knew they had less time than they thought. And somewhere in the city, someone was already moving toward them. The first light of dawn touched the windows when Jungkook finally understood that there was nowhere left to run. For years, he had believed his greatest fear was dying. Now he realized it had never been death. It had been leaving Jimin behind with unanswered questions. Jimin stood beside him, staring at the dark laptop screen. "They know where we are," Jimin whispered. Jungkook nodded. "We don't have much time." He looked down at the black drive in his hand. Everything had started because of this tiny piece of metal. Spudgen's secret. His mother's betrayal. The altered medical records. The lies about his illness. The people who had spent years manipulating his life. Jungkook suddenly laughed bitterly. "All of this because I thought I was dying." Jimin took his hand. "You didn't know. But I pushed you away. You were afraid. I told you to marry someone else. And I refused." Jungkook smiled faintly. "You really are stubborn." "So are you." Jungkook looked into his eyes. "I love you." Jimin squeezed his hand. "I know. No matter what happens." Jimin immediately interrupted him. "Don't." Jungkook smiled. "You know what I was going to say. You were going to say something that sounds like goodbye." Jungkook lowered his eyes. Jimin stepped closer. "Don't give me a goodbye when we are still here." Jungkook nodded. "Okay." They contacted the authorities using the evidence stored on Seojun's laptop. The files were enough to expose years of financial crimes, falsified records, intimidation, and the people connected to them. The authorities arrived before sunrise fully broke over the city. For the first time, Jungkook didn't run. He told them everything. He told them about Seojun. He told them about Minyi. He told them about the manipulated medical records. He told them about the threats. And he gave them the drives. Hours later, Minyi was arrested. The people connected to the organization were investigated. Jungkook's mother eventually confessed that she had been pressured into signing documents she didn't understand, believing she was protecting her family. She had carried the secret for years. Not because she didn't love Jungkook. Because she had been afraid. Jungkook finally understood that fear had shaped almost every tragedy in his life. Seojun had been afraid. His mother had been afraid. Dr. Kang had been afraid. Jungkook had been afraid. And Jimin had been the only person who refused to let fear make his decisions for him. Several weeks later, Jungkook returned to the hospital. This time, Jimin sat beside him. The new doctors reviewed the original records. The truth was finally confirmed. Jungkook was sick. But he wasn't dying. The treatment would be difficult. There would be setbacks. There would be painful days. There would be uncertainty. But there was a future. A real one. Jungkook cried when he heard it. Not because everything was suddenly perfect. Because, for the first time in months, tomorrow belonged to him again. Jimin hugged him. "You still owe me something." Jungkook laughed through his tears. "What? A trip? What trip?" "You said you would take me somewhere I've never been." Jungkook smiled. "I remember. And you owe me coffee." "You hate my coffee." "I never said that." "You did." "I lied." Jungkook laughed. They left the hospital together. Months passed. Treatment became part of their routine. Some days were difficult. Some days Jungkook felt exhausted. Some days Jimin was the one who needed encouragement. They learned that love wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes love was sitting beside someone in a hospital room. Sometimes it was remembering medication. Sometimes it was making terrible coffee. Sometimes it was laughing when neither of them felt like laughing. And sometimes it was simply staying. One winter morning, Jungkook finally took Jimin to the beach. The sky was still dark. They sat on the sand, wrapped in the same blanket. Jimin looked at the horizon. "You actually did it." Jungkook smiled. "I promised." The sun slowly appeared. Golden light spread across the water. Jimin leaned his head against Jungkook's shoulder. "Do you remember what you told me?" "What?" "You told me to marry someone else." Jungkook groaned. "Please forget that." "I never will." "I was an idiot." "Yes. I was scared." "I know." Jungkook looked at him. "If I could go back, I would do everything differently." Jimin smiled. "But then we wouldn't be here." Jungkook looked at the sunrise. "No." He took Jimin's hand. "I think I finally understand something." "What?" "Love isn't about knowing how much time you have." Jimin looked at him. "It's about what you do with the time you have." Jungkook smiled. "And I want all of mine with you." Jimin's eyes filled with tears. "You're not getting rid of me." "I know." They laughed. The waves rolled gently toward the shore. For once, there were no secrets waiting behind them. No locked drawers. No hidden letters. No mysterious calls. No goodbye waiting at the end of the day. Only mornings. Only the sea. Only Jimin and Jungkook. Years later, Jimin would sometimes remember that rainy night when Jungkook had told him to marry someone else. He would remember how broken Jungkook had looked. How convinced he had been that love meant leaving. And he would remember what happened afterward. Jungkook learned that protecting someone didn't mean deciding their future for them. Jimin learned that loving someone didn't mean pretending fear didn't exist. They learned to face uncertainty together. Not because they knew everything would be perfect, but because neither of them wanted perfection anymore. They wanted honesty. They wanted ordinary mornings. They wanted shared coffee. They wanted long conversations. They wanted arguments followed by laughter. They wanted photographs that didn't feel like goodbyes. And most of all, they wanted time. Real time. Together. One evening, Jimin found the old black notebook in a drawer. He opened it. The final page still contained the sentence Jungkook had written years before. "I hope he comes after me anyway." Jimin smiled. Jungkook walked into the room. "What are you reading?" "Your old notebook." He immediately looked embarrassed. "You read that again?" "Yes." "Give it back." "No." "Jimin." Jimin laughed. "You were so dramatic." "I was dying." "You thought you were dying." "Still dramatic." Jimin closed the notebook. Then he looked at Jungkook. "You know what the funniest part is?" "What?" "You spent all that time planning how to leave me." Jungkook smiled. "And you never planned what would happen if I refused to let you go." Jungkook walked toward him. "I guess I wasn't very good at planning." "No." Jimin wrapped his arms around him. "You were just very good at loving me badly." Jungkook laughed softly. "I'm learning." Jimin rested his head against his chest. "Good." Outside, rain began tapping against the window. The same sound. The same kind of night. But everything was different now. Jungkook held Jimin closer. He no longer counted the days he had left. He counted the days they had shared. And every morning after that became another answer to the question Jungkook had once been too afraid to ask. How much time do we have? Enough for today. Enough to love. Enough to stay. Enough for Jimin. Enough for Jungkook. And this time neither of them chose goodbye.